Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm at the Tropicana at Chickies and Pete's. He is Adam Caplan. The Eagles will play on Sunday. We've got football tonight. This is Football at 4. Adam Caplan, how are you, my friend?
Good to be with you, Mike. Glad you're back, and it's good to see you as we can. We do this virtually. It's cool. I'm good. I'm so glad that we have football. I remember last time this year, I had first time in 18 years I didn't have a training camp tour. I was kind of bummed about it. I didn't go actually, and did not go to an Eagles home game. I did not sit in the press box for the first time since probably 2002 for a season. So it was kind of weird being at home because we just didn't know what to expect. But this year I had a training camp tour. I saw about half the leagues, around 15 or 16 teams, and I was just glad to do it. Glad to get out, out there, and glad we have football and what promised to be I think a pretty even matchup.
This certainly is a very even matchup. A couple, Baldy was on with me yesterday, Adam, and I will get your reaction because when he said this, my reaction was, whoa. He says, I expect them to steamroll the Falcons, and his reasoning is their offensive line. He thinks the weak spot of the Falcons against the strong suit of the Eagles is that offensive line play. Of course, Brandon Brooks being on the injured list is a little murky, but when I say steamroll them, do you get surprised by that?
Well, I'll say this much. I am picking the Eagles to win outright. I know they're, a 3.5 point dog. I just think they're the better team. Where I take that a little further is they're significantly better on both sides of the line. The Eagles' D-line is way better than the Falcons' D-line, and the Eagles' offensive line is way better than the Falcons' offensive line. So if you just look at the war of the trenches, that's where this game is going to be won. And there's no doubt about that. Where they have issues is the lack of experience at wide receiver and quarterback. That's certainly something that the Eagles can't overcome. They have who they have, and we'll see how that is handled going forward in this game. It starts on Sunday, but I think the Eagles have a decided advantage on both sides of the football up front, and to me that's going to be the difference in the game.
All right, well, let's take a look up front because the injury report yesterday, I'm not sure if the updated Thursday version is out yet. I'm on remote, so I have. Has it changed at all? Okay, because Brandon Brooks, LP, same with Dickerson, Taylor, and McLeod. Those three we don't anticipate playing, but Brooks was a bit of a surprise. So what do we know there?
Yeah, the only concern was because Brandon Brooks' injury is a new one. Anytime you talk about Brandon Brooks and injuries, you get concerned. Yeah, it would be definitely a surprise if Dickerson, McLeod, and Taylor were able to play. That would be very surprising. We'll find out for sure tomorrow. But the key there is that Brooks worked for the second straight day. He's got a minor knee injury. So I expect him to go, barring something unforeseen like a setback. The Eagles don't have a lot of depth. Remember now that Jack Driscoll's on injured reserve, who will be one of their top backup offensive linemen who could play guard or right tackle. Nate Herbig would be the guy most likely who would start if for some reason Brooks can't play. And again, this is an area, Mike, where they could be absolutely dominant. When you watch this game Sunday, I'd be shocked if the Eagles' offensive line had any real issues against this front seven of the Falcons.
Yeah, and so let's get into the Eagles' offense here. What do we anticipate that their offense will look like? We have a new, obviously, play caller and some new weapons to play with here. You've got an offensive line, too. That factors into what the offense will look like.
Yeah, I still believe it's going to be somewhat of like a West Coast offensive style. I don't want to call it dink and dunk. I don't think that's fair, but a lot of run after the catch. That's kind of what we had heard since February. I expect that still to be the case. I think you're going to ask these guys to go get the football. Route running's got to be better than it was last year. That was a problem for them. I expect it to be better this year. I think they'll be coached better. I just think everything's going to be better on offense, particularly offensive line. And they'll take the shot plays. But another thing, we talked about this on our Inside the Bird show that dropped this morning. We talked about how we expect the tight ends to be very active in this game because the Falcons don't have a very good secondary. I think they're okay at linebacker, but I think overall, I think the Eagles will get the tight ends heavily involved with Zach Ertz back. So that's something you could see starting with this game.
Yeah, that's I'm really interested in that dynamic, Adam, of who gets more snaps, who gets more targets. Do they split them up? Is Ertz the guy? I think, to me, how they utilize them in the offense is something I will certainly be watching on Sunday.
Oh, cannot wait. That, to me, is one of the biggest storylines. There are a lot of storylines for this game. That's one of them, top 5. Who gets the majority of the snaps? I think Goddard will play more than Ertz, but who gets the targets? That's, to me, one of the stories of the game. And remember, Goddard's going to be a 3-down tight end for them because he can block way better than Ertz. But Ertz is obviously the more accomplished pass catcher.
Right. And, Adam, I don't know if it was a surprise in the end, but Quez Watkins being your number 3 wide receiver, you would imagine that he's going to be on the field for, I don't know, enough snaps that he's a part of the game. But you can't have Goddard and Ertz and Watkins all on the field at the same time, you would imagine. So how does Watkins' role in the offense affect how much they use the tight ends?
Well, there are certain ways you could deploy them. That I don't see that being a big deal. I mean, Watkins is not a guy most likely to play 40 to 50 plays. I think he's somewhere in that 20 to 30 snap range. And the great thing about the Eagles roster right now at the receiver and tight end position is there are so many things they could do with speed. There's just so much they can do. 2 years ago, they were super slow. Now they're fast. I get they're not experienced at receiver. But with Rager, Devontae Smith, and Watkins, they could all fly. Miles Sanders can run. Kenny Gainwell, cannot wait to see him. They're going to be able to mix and match. Obviously, when you play a lot of these guys, you're only going to play one tight end at times. I don't believe they're going to be as heavily into 12 personnel as usual. Last year, they were about 33% of the time, which was the number 1 in the National Football League. I expect them to be in the 20s, not to lead the NFL. Again, they'll probably be top 5 because you have to count for Ertz. But they're going to have such an ability to spread the field with its offense and go from multiple personnel sets, 12 to 11. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
That's the unknown here is how much 12 they'll play. But I do know this. Rager, Smith, and Watkins could flat out fly, and I think this coaching staff will do a much better job of understanding how to use personnel.
Now, I don't know if you caught what Romo said, but he said, the Eagles' line is significantly better. I think we've all realized that. But he mentioned when your line's better, you can take shots on the second level and the third level. So Jalen Hurts you mentioned their secondary is not very good. Do you anticipate them trying to letting Jalen Hurts take shots down the field starting in week 1?
Absolutely. If they protect, they will be able to do that. I expect that to happen. I don't think they're going to ask them to do as much vertical as the former staff. I think it'll be more intermediate, run after the catch and go long. You'll see screens. You're going to see the running backs heavily involved in the pass game. I don't know what happened last year. I know Miles Sanders had between 7 and 9 drops, depending on who's grading them. But the fact of the matter is, these guys have ability. They're super deep at running back. They've got speed at receiver. They've got this offensive line, which is potentially top 3 if they could stay healthy for most of the season. And I expect them to have a very intriguing offense. It's just that you got to put it all together, and it could take a little bit of time.
All right, he is Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. It dropped this morning to get you ready for the Eagles and the Falcons. They'll have the pregame show with Adam and Moshe and Greg Cosell and I think Jason Avant and Quentin Michael going to be making some appearances on that as well. That is Sunday at 10 o'clock on the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. You guys will be talking, I would imagine, about Matt Ryan's role, 36-year-old MVP. I don't know. Does that worry you? If you're the Eagles' defense, is Matt Ryan a former MVP? Is he a concern, or is there something else about this offense that concerns you?
Well, it's all tied together because if Matt Ryan's protected, I still think the Eagles' D-line will dominate the Falcon offensive line, which is probably bottom 10. They've got 2 guys that are pretty good. Really, one, Jake Matthews is terrific, the left tackle. Right guard Lindstrom's decent, above average. The rest of them are in fact, Josh Andrews, who was going to be the former Eagle, Josh Andrews, who was going to be their left guard, is on injured reserve. So the Eagles in the interior with Cox and Hargrave are going to give them fits. I think this is where Matt Ryan is not an athlete. He does not move very well. He's got lead feet. I think if you pressure him inside the middle, he's going to have problems. And to me, I think that's where the advantage is. But if they protect him, when they protect him, you're going to see Calvin Ridley, who's terrific, who's a fourth-year receiver, who's an absolute stud. Russell Gage, who had a breakout season last year, and Zacchaeus, a kid who's from North Jersey, number 17, who's their shot play guy, he's had a 90-yarder and a 50-yarder in his career. This is his third year. That's where I struggle with the Eagles because they are not deep at corner on the outside. That's an issue where I think the Falcons could have some success. They'll be heavy 12 personnel team with Philly's own Kyle Pitts from Warminster and Hayden Hurst, a former first rounder from the Ravens. Those guys are pretty good athletes, particularly Pitts. That to me is going to give the Eagles problems. I think this is a game of the tight ends. I don't think there's any question both teams will get their tight ends prominently involved.
Well, I told people coming up after you're done, I'm going to give my X factor in the game. But in the beginning, for the Falcons, my X factor is who defends Pitts and how do they use him? Because that's where I think if the Atlanta Falcons say, look, he played one snap, I think, in the preseason for them. So we don't really know how they're going to utilize him. But however they do the Eagles have an answer for tight ends this year?
Well, he's not going to be on the inside very much. He'll split them out in the slot or on the outside and spread them out. They're really a three-deep receiver core. They'll use three guys, Ridley, Gage, and Zacchaeus, as I mentioned. I don't see Pitts being a blocker very much. Lee Smith, who's number 85, when you guys watch him on Sunday, assuming he's active, he almost certainly would be active because they only have three tight ends on their active roster. He was once one of the best blocking tight ends in the National Football League. They actually traded for him. They got him from Buffalo, and he could flat-out block, and that'll enable Pitts and Hurst. I do believe that the Eagles will have to get physical with these guys. You can't let them get out there and run routes. The problem is the Eagles are very small at linebacker. You could still disrupt the routes by inside 5 yards. You could be physical with them without there being a penalty. But it's going to be a problem for them. Eric Wilson could cover, though, and so could Singleton. But those guys are just bigger and physical, more athletic. So that's going to be a problem. I think the tight ends for the Falcons are going to do a good job. The question is, will you double Kyle Pitts? That to me is the question.
Now, Jonathan Gannon played cover 2 almost 40% of the time in the preseason. Is there anything that we should see from that? Is that what they're going to do? And which is certainly different from what Jim Schwartz did. I mean, so how do the safeties factor into that?
Yeah, and honestly, they did nothing. They didn't show anything. They're going to be completely different. They were very vanilla on defense. They'll play some cover 2 because the Eagles are going to be mostly his own defense.
Right.
But it's how you deploy your zone and how you try to cover them. I'm very interested to see do they bracket coverage Pitts? Do they keep him inside? Don't let him get outside? Really, he's not really a deep threat. He's running after the catch guy. They're going to have their hands full. The Eagles, as we know, are not deep at corner. Their linebackers historically do not cover very well. This is an advantage, though, the Falcons are going to have. If they protect Matt Ryan, this is where the Falcons could score. Typically, the games are not high scoring week 1. Every once in a while there is, but typically they're not. To me, that's a little bit of a concern.
All right. Another one area where I'm interested, Adam, is Calvin Ridley. Obviously, he's a number 1 guy. He's their number 1 guy. How is Darius Slay, Steven Nelson? Does Gannon use Slay all over the place? Does he stay on one side?
It's funny because Jim Schwartz would play man, and Gannon, just based on who he's worked for, you would think they're going to play a lot of zone and just play sides. So, you could double in an area. You could hand off, but double in an area. That, to me, is the million-dollar question here, is how you choose to cover them. Because they've got a very deep pass target group. There's no question about it. I'm very interested to see how they do this. No doubt about it. It's going to be interesting to see on Sunday how they deploy them. It's an unknown. We don't know. It's their first game. It's one thing.
Yeah. If
they had played a game, okay, Mike, here's what they do. Here's how I think they'll do it. We don't know because they showed absolutely nothing. Anything you see disregarded in the preseason, it means really nothing.
I agree that that will be something that will be interesting to see if Jonathan Gannon moves him around or not. All right, so the Eagles, one spot where we said offensive line, they're very good. Their defensive line is the strength of their defense. This could be a very big spot in the game, them against that offensive line for the Atlanta Falcons, which you mentioned is just okay. But if something about the offense and there's a weakness of the Eagles, what would that be? Where's the spot on Sunday that would be concerning for the defense?
I would say the lack of depth on the corner on the outside. You don't want Avonte Maddox playing outside the slot. You want him staying inside. Russell Gage is the guy. Number 14 will probably play a lot inside when they go 3 wide with Sakia 17 on the outside. Maddox could hang with Gage. They're okay, but they don't really have a fourth. To me, McPherson has not showed yet that you can depend on him. I know he had a nice training camp. Preseason tape was not great. If you have to go to Zach McPherson, that is an advantage for the Falcons. And to me, if you're the Eagles, you treat Kyle Pitts like a receiver. You don't treat him like a tight end because he's not a tight end. He's really a flex tight end. And that, to me, is going to be the chess match between Arthur Smith, who, by the way, could have been the Eagles head coach had the Eagles been willing to wait for him. But he got an offer from the Falcons. The Eagles wanted to interview other candidates, but I know the Eagles were blown away by him. So it's kind of funny how things work out. But he is the Falcons head coach, and I'm interested to see what he does here.
All right, real quick, a couple transactions were made over the weekend or over this week. Mclean, a corner. You just talked about corner depth. Is he a player that has any factor not only into this game but obviously this season? Is he a guy, as you mentioned, they're very thin. We knew that coming into the season at corner. Is he a guy that can help them out down the road?
Well, he's a guy, Mclean, who played at a small school, North Carolina A&T. The Eagles like his size, I'm told. But I'd be stunned if he dressed, because you have guys on the practice squad that you could bring up. Now, we don't know, because Eagles don't have to put an injury report out for their practice squad players. Is Craig James healthy, number 31, who the Eagles know very well because he's been with them for a couple of years. Could he, who had the great training camp last year, that's why he made the team, and he's a good special teams player. If he's healthy enough, you would think he'd be the first guy to come off the practice squad. Michael Jaquette is a guy that they could bring off the practice squad. And remember, you've got the practice squad elevations you can make before the game. You could sign guys off the practice squad. McCain is on the 53. I understand that, but he just got there. And to me, that just is too much of a risk to me. I'd be very surprised. And by the way, I'm also told that McCain had an injury in the preseason. So I don't know where he's from a physical standpoint, but the good thing is, he's not on the injury report, because he's on the 53. You have to list him if he has an injury, and apparently he's healthy enough. So we'll see. But it would surprise me if he dressed.
By the way, some breaking news with the Ravens earlier, about a half hour ago. Gus Edwards, ACL tear, looks like he's out for the year, and Marcus Peters in the same practice. So
the ESPN, all the reports out there say that they fear that that's what they are. And by the way, 99% of the time when the club fears the injuries, I can tell you from reporting on these, they're right. Because they get the stress test. Unfortunately, I was there, crazy. One of my first ever training camp practices when Jamal Lewis tore his ACL. That one, they didn't think it was bad, and then when they got the testing back, it was way worse than they expected. But when they fear it, it's just about always right because of the initial testing that goes on. That's too bad, man. Because remember, they just lost Dobbins to a torn ACL. J.K. Dobbins. It's terrible. So if the MRI within the next 12 to 14 hours shows that's killer. That's absolutely killer because they just don't have the depth.
Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast. Don't forget the pregame show on Sunday. The guys will be live starting at 10 on the Inside the Birds YouTube platform. You said you like the Eagles to win the game.
I do.
What's the score of that game? Is it a big game, close?
Yeah, 24-20 Eagles. The only reason why I think it'll be close, because week one, teams are really totally sharp. The Eagles clearly have the better roster, but I'd be surprised. And it's interesting. You've got rookie head coaches here for both teams. But remember, the Eagles are bringing back some coaches from the previous staff, and I think that'll help them, particularly with Jeff Stoutland, Aaron Moorhead, and some other coaches. I think that'll help them.
All right, Adam Caplan, looking forward to another season. Football at 4 is here, and tomorrow Andrew DeCecco will be here to give us his breakdown of the game. I guarantee he knows something about Mclean as well, as he will be here for tomorrow's edition of Football at 4. All right, Adam, thanks, man.
You got it. Thank you.